This is just a quick video response to Philosophicat's last video on nihilism. I think it was part 3 about Nietzsche and the pursuit of the Übermensch. So, I think she was very right to point out that a lot of people purportedly pursuing the Übermensch are just out of control sociopaths. You can definitely witness that on pretty much any college campus, even off of them. It's a common thing in our generation. I think that in Nietzsche's approach, he was misguided. And I think it's pretty self-evident that he succumbed to his own misguidance when he kind of lost his marbles at the end of his life. And I think it's direct cause of this. So when you argue yourself to the point of nihilism, what you're saying is not that there is no objective meaning in life or that there are no objective values. What you're saying is that you don't believe that there are objective meaning or values, and that the previous ones that you've held did not hold up to scrutiny, which is his approach of philosophizing with the hammer, which has been adopted by, I guess, the postmodernists and social justice warrior types. The thing is, when you say everything is relative, life has there's no objectivity, what you're saying is that objective reality is that everything's relative, and that's a paradoxical statement, and I don't believe that there are any metaphysical paradoxes. I think when you are in philosophy or metaphysics and you encounter a paradox, it's just because you misunderstand. A similar thing is like when you encounter the question, how can, if matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed, how was the universe created? Well, that's a paradox, unless you have an understanding of cyclical time and non-linear time, of eternity and not creation and destruction. Anyway, I think if you get to the point of nihilism, at the point that you say, I'm going to take my life as art, and I'm going to build on top of the blank canvas, which is existential nihilism, you are encountering your own hubris. You think that you're above the gods, and that you can be like the gods, much like in Oedipus Rex. And for this, you will pay a price, and it will be a very steep one. You could try to build on top of nothing and make every decision yourself, but I don't believe that it is within the human capability to do the mental gymnastics necessary to convince yourself that your arbitrarily constructed values are of any note or of any worth beyond just like a daydream that you forget in a couple days. I think that once you get to the point of nihilism, the proper thing to do, which she may talk about in the next video about Evola. I've never read Evola either, but I know he's more of a traditionalist. The proper thing to do is really to just try to find the objective value and meaning. Because if your issue is that there's no single big daddy sky god that made rules and you have to follow them, well, maybe you're misunderstanding the meaning of objective values. Because when you look in nature, there are objective values. Certain things are better for survival or for the health of an individual or a species. That's just one example, that like survival of the fittest, strength prevails. I mean, that's an objective value because there's no escaping it. But if you look to the traditions, especially the European pagan tradition seems like the most spot on one, the most insightful one, you will be able to find the objective meaning and the values that you're searching for, departing from a point of nihilism, which nihilism certainly is a transition stage, but not for you to build on top of arbitrarily, but for you to discover the truth and rid yourself of the Christian worldview. And then one more thing, just an aside. I think the spiritual lacking is of the doctrine of awakening type thing is only lacking in Christianity and not in Judaism. So I believe the Jews do have objective value, so that I see that when criticizing Christian Judeo values, it's not, I don't think that's a good criticism. I think we just need to criticize Christian values, because the Judeo values are completely different, and if you read the Old Testament, you will understand that. And actually, I just made a video explaining some parts of the Bible that are often overlooked by Christians, and I think looking at the Old Testament in context as a book by and for the Jews, writing out their 4,000-year plan, it seems, understanding it in context can help you understand what the New Testament actually is, which is a method of conquest, a way to subdue your enemies and take over the earth. And the Jews were promised a Messiah for their people who would conquer their enemies and lead them into Zion. And that is supposedly the reason that they don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, because he was a God of, or he was a Messiah of universal compassion and brotherly love and that sort of thing, not of conquest. But it was through this philosophy of nonviolence and universal compassion that he conquered the foreigners for the Jews. And it is in this way that I think Jews can understand what's going on, if they are in tune with what's going on. And maybe they really do understand that Jesus was the Messiah that they were promised. And it's just not something that you can really say, because then people will realize you're taking over their cultures and removing their values and replacing them with inferior ones, which will not allow your race to survive. So the Jews absolutely have objective values and spiritual realization, because their realizing of divinity is not necessarily of the individual, but of the tribe. And perhaps an individual can feel special among the tribe, being God's chosen people, and that's a sort of recognition of divinity, but it's an emphasis on the tribe instead of the individual, as opposed to where Buddhism is recognition of the aristocratic nature of the Buddha and the person who goes through that journey themselves. I think it's just a different emphasis, but the same thing. Christianity, on the other hand, Christianity is just meant to subdue and domesticate and render impotent.